I'm going to play you a viral video of an arrest down in Arkansas. And as always with these types of videos, I want to warn you ahead of time that it is graphic and it is very hard to watch. The video on the screen depicts 3 police officers from 2 different police departments holding down and beating 27-year-old Randall Worcester during an arrest on Sunday. It's not clear what happened during the recording. Before the recording, we see here on the screen, authorities say the officers were responding to reports of a man making threats outside of a convenience store. Following that arrest and before being taken to jail, Worcester was taken to the hospital to be treated for his injuries. The police departments involved in the encounter say 2 officers have been suspended and 1 has been placed on administrative leave. And investigations into the arrest have been opened by the Arkansas State Police and the Department of Justice. During a press conference Monday, Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson condemned the police officers' actions.
First of all, that is reprehensible conduct in which a suspect is beat in that fashion. That response was not consistent with the training that they receive as certified officers.
Joining me now is MSNBC legal analyst Charles Coleman. He's a civil rights attorney and former prosecutor. So Charles, help us understand what happened here based on what we're seeing in this video.
Well, Zerlina, there's not too many different ways that I can explain this. This clearly seems as though these officers are engaged in the use of excessive force against this individual, even as they claim that they are trying to detain him and effect an arrest. As you watch the continued striking of him around the head, common sense just dictates that you are not using appropriate force by slamming someone's head into the concrete and repeatedly punching them into the face. If your goal is to get his arms down to a place where you can apply handcuffs, then you wouldn't punch him in the face, because one's natural reaction is to protect themselves and raise their hands. And so the story that we are hearing early on from these police officers simply does not reconcile very well with common sense. And it does absolutely appear, based off of what we've seen in the video thus far, that this is unquestionably excessive force.
How is excessive force defined in the context of this particular case? What would a prosecutor need to demonstrate in the state of Arkansas that these police officers were engaged in excessive use of force?
Well, Zerlina, the standard around excessive force is generally going to be the same for law enforcement everywhere, and it revolves around one central question. That question being, was the level of force necessary in order to either de-escalate the situation, neutralize what potential threat may have existed, or keep the officers safe? And so the question is going to be about reasonableness. Was the force used reasonable under the circumstances in order to affect any of those 3 things? Was it a matter of public safety or the officer safety? Was it a matter of making sure that the arrest was affected properly? Or was there some other threat that the police were trying to neutralize in the process? Those are going to be the questions that come into the notion of reasonableness. And in this incident, based off of what we've seen and what we seem to know, it does not appear that meets that standard and that threshold.
So that's a really helpful definition, because, I mean, this isn't the only video, though, where it doesn't appear on its face to meet the standard you just laid out. But one of the things that I often wonder is why police don't de-escalate. I really have rarely ever seen video, especially with a person of color, where police are actually de-escalating, trying to de-escalate. I only see escalation in these videos. What do you make of that?
Well, Zerlina, I think that raises a number of different issues around the problem of policing in America. I think police culture in America has shown itself to be toxic on myriad levels. And the way that we engage police and the way that we involve law enforcement, quite frankly, in many situations is inappropriate. We should not be involving law enforcement to help mitigate situations where individuals are experiencing mental health crises, for example, or traumatic episodes psychologically, because as you've just said, that does not de-escalate the situation. There are a number of models of policing across the country. I can think of San Francisco, I can think of Oakland, California, and Eugene, Oregon, for example, where they have taken an approach of providing additional resources to allow for crisis officers to show up who are not armed, who are not wearing uniform, who are not showing up to the scene with sirens blaring and guns drawn in order to help identify whether a situation, number one, can be escalated and what the appropriate approach is. And oftentimes, that is a better model for trying to engage many of these situations that, if police were involved, would likely go the other way.
One of the things that's often said is, police have to react this way because, they're risking their lives and they want to be able to make it home to their families. And I'm like, I want everybody to go home. Even if somebody's arrested, I want everybody to be able to go where they're supposed to go alive, including the police officer and the person they're attempting to arrest. I don't think anybody should die in that situation, particularly when there are no weapons involved on the part of the person who's being arrested. Let's talk about what needs to change. Policing reform did not make it through the Congress, although the conversation is still very much ongoing. Are we just going to have to watch a video like this every couple of months until somebody decides that qualified immunity is something in need of reformulation?
Zerlina, I just wrote a piece in Slate about this very issue, and it's going to be posted later today, so I encourage people to check it out. I think that the first thing that has to happen is that we've got to adjust to the idea and the reality that our issues with policing are systemic and they're widespread. We have a tendency to approach this conversation in a way that says, oh, it's just a few bad apples or one or two bad actors, and once we deal with them, the problem will dissipate. That is not true. We are dealing with a toxic police culture in America. And until we begin to deal with that, we will then have to accept the need for policy, transparency, and accountability.
Charles Coleman, thank you so much for being here today. Please stay safe.
Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.